Good morning, everybody. My name is George Prout. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of GEMS One. Joining me this morning on the panel is my friend and our customer, Bob Mullen. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, George. How you doing? Good morning.
Very good. Bob, so that all of you know, is both a customer of GEMS One as well as the director of the Digital Jewelers Academy. In my experience in speaking with hundreds of jewelers about social media, there is no one who is more knowledgeable or frankly who gets more jollies out of doing social media. I think it's if it wasn't a way of making money, I think Bob would do it as a hobby.
Yeah,
Bob is proud to mention the fact that he is a fifth generation jeweler.
that's right.
And also Bob is proud to mention the fact that no Mullen has ever touched a torch. I think that's pretty
That's
amazing.
right. Five generations, no goldsmiths. We employ them. I employ them and manage them. I don't do it myself. I tell the customers you don't want me anywhere near your jewelry.
It's an amazing thing. So when things started to shut down because of coronavirus, Anuj and I had a series of chats in which we both agreed that it was critically important that we spend this downtime building tools for our customers. And so what we're going to be going through today are some of the tools we've built. For those of you who don't know, we also own an advertising agency, and I run that. And so what you're going to be looking at is a tremendous amount of content that both was built by Bob on the social end, as well as built by RLA. RLA is a team of extremely talented people. Barbara Reese, who's the creative director, Melissa, who is the photographer, as well as a great designer and retoucher, Frank Gambino, who does a lot of customization, and Shannon, who builds videos. So we've been hard at work building stuff for you. So you're going to be seeing tons of practical content. Also, I promise, as is normally the way I operate in a seminar, you will not be ambushed by a sales pitch. There is something in here that does cost money if you choose to do it, but almost everything we're going to be talking about is absolutely free. We're giving this to you because we think it's critically important that you maximize the opportunities that will avail themselves as America reopens. Also, at the end of the webinar, we'll review a test that I'm doing. This is not necessarily built into this notion of how to reopen, but it's an extremely important initiative, a way of targeting consumers who are visiting your competitors' websites. When I first saw this back in December, I actually didn't understand it. And upon revisiting it, I then immediately became concerned that it was illegal. I mean, it is unbelievable what we can do. We spent 3 weeks confirming that, yes, it is in fact legal in the United States and in Canada. It may not be legal in the EU, but that should give you a sense of how incredibly powerful I think it is. So I'm just going to give you a quick preview about that at the end. But first, let me make a few observations. Also, Bob is going to be kind of monitoring questions over the course of this morning. So if you've got questions, you can type them in. Also, we can open things up to questions at the end of the seminar. So observation number one. You know, like you, I'm watching the news, I'm watching pundits, I'm watching webinars, and almost everybody is talking about how things will never, ever be the same. And that may absolutely be the case, but I would caution you from buying into that completely. As someone who was once upon a time an athlete, as well as a coach for a bunch of salespeople over the last 25 years, it's been my experience that people will only change how they behave when their beliefs change. And so it naturally follows that the extent to which people's behavior will change now will depend on where they lie on the following spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, there is the, oh my God, the people who have been totally freaked out by what's occurred. And on the other far end of the spectrum, there are the people who are going, kind of, what virus? I mean, they seem almost unimpacted. And I'm sure that you've met people, you've spoken with people who are all over the spectrum. Now, America is heterogeneous, but different geography will also possess different clusters. We're seeing this in the kind of reactions that are on the TV. It looks to me like if you're in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, If you're in that area, you're probably going to be clustering closer to the, oh my God, sense of what coronavirus has done. If you're from states like California, Virginia, or Maryland, you're somewhere in the middle. And if you're in Texas or Oklahoma or a place like Iowa, the apparent impact psychologically on people there seems to be minimized. So the extent to which you address these issues will be partly a function of where you are, but recognize that in your market, there will be consumers from all parts of the spectrum. So in your actions and in your advertising, remember to appeal to each psychological segment whenever possible. In fact, if we were to do a segmentation analysis, it would look something like this. There is a group of people who are very scared, for whom there will probably be a big behavioral change. There are people who are kind of scared with a smaller behavior change. And then there are people who are not scared at all with no behavior change. Now, I've broken this segmentation circle into thirds. That's not what really is happening. Again, I think if you were in New York or New Jersey, the part of the people that are very scared with the big behavioral change is probably the largest part. If you're in Texas or Oklahoma, it's probably the reverse. Observation number 2, bridal will now be even more important than it was, and it already was incredibly important. But when I think back to 9/11, I remember very specifically the fact that nothing sold for 7 weeks. I mean, all of September and all of October, that is after 9/11, everything shut down. But then an amazing thing started to happen early November. People started buying engagement rings to the extent that my boss at the time actually took me into his office and said, "What's going on? Our bridal sales are through the roof." I mistakenly thought at the time that all we were seeing was pent-up demand. Nobody had bought an engagement ring for 7 weeks. So naturally, if you compress all that into early November, you're going to see an uptick. But I was wrong. What was really happening was the chaos and the sadness that followed 9/11 directly had a strong emotional impact on people. And it changed, I think, the way people felt about the other person in their life. And it caused couples to reconsider and actually formalize their relationship. And so we saw this huge wave of engagement ring buying. So I would similarly suggest that you get conditioned for a bridal consumption wave that is likely to start occurring 30 to 60 days after your area opens. Now, it's interesting, if you go back in the data, if you then look at 2002, actual weddings did not increase. So what happened was we saw this huge uptick in bridal in November, December, and I think this was the beginning of a new trend of couples actually having their engagements be prolonged. So instead of getting engaged and getting married within a year, what we see today is there are all kinds of durations. Couples can get engaged and not get married for 3 or 4 years. In fact, sometimes they get engaged and they don't get married at all. But be ready for this large increase in bridal interest. Finally, observation number 3, we know for sure that in past downturns, and I've now, in 45 years, I've lived through a bunch of them, stores that were aggressive saw a smaller dip in their sales, recovered more quickly, and grew their market share in the process. It is precisely when your competitors turn into turtles that you should become a rabbit. There is just no question about this. So now let's turn our focus to the elements of reopening. Step number 1 clearly will be announcing that you're open. And for this, we've built a ton of e-blasts, social media, and Facebook frames. Let me just escape from this so that I can pull up part of the RLA assets.
George, we have to prepare for all those quarantine shotgun weddings too.
Yeah, well, and wait for the push presents in December. So anyway, what we're looking at now are a series of posts that are actually on the Google Drive that you can access. And at this point, I'd like to turn this over to Bob. I'm going to start just rolling through these. But Bob, if you could speak to the various elements of both using a frame as a way of expanding the visibility of the store, and then the kinds of social media that you're going to be doing. Let me just pull up one of these.
Yeah, in the same way, George, that you were referencing the spectrum of people are going to range from very scared to what virus. we tried to create a lot of different social content that's going to kind of meet people where they are. So you're going to see a wide variety of images here. Some have more text and some have less text, and you can kind of use them as you like and make sure to keep cycling through. We created a lot of images that try to easily communicate not only jewelry, but also the safety precautions we're taking. If you can just linger on one of these for a second, George.
Sure, yeah, the frames.
These are, so what you're seeing here, the checkered background means it's a transparency. So what we've done is we've created some frames. This one's on white. Can you move it onto an on black so we can read
Sure.
it? When the picture behind it has a black background, you can read those white text like those. And these guys here, like with the black background, are ones we can read now. So it's going to be easier so you actually know what we're looking at. These are going to be, these are designed in a circle. So these are simple little frames or layovers for your store's Facebook profile. So if you put a picture of your store in the middle, I would recommend, you know, putting a shot of the owner, of the staff, of the family, of the building, something that's going to easily communicate not only who you are, but also where you are and physically who you are. And then these frames are going to live right over the top of that. To communicate that we're back. So every single time that you post on Facebook as your store, it's going to show that frame as well. It helps to reinforce the fact that we're open and we're operational.
This was a dummy shot that we took since we're not posting it yet for Jody's website because she's not open yet. But this will give you a sense of what some of those frames would look like.
Yep, and so you see the image behind it's a square, but the frame is a circle. So you'll just want to pick a profile image for the time being that's got stuff centralized in the middle and works around it. You'll see some of these are a little bit longer and heavier in text. Those are going to be really effective for eBlasts because we can use as much text as we like there in those. We're talking about all different things from sanitizers to hand wipes, just simple, easily communicating things to show that we're back open again. And these guys here are just nice product images. As you're normally going to be putting product up on your Facebook, we can use these and lay over the fact that we tried to highlight some different things that most stores are going to be doing, from wearing personal protective gear to having hand sanitizer available, going through a cleaning regimen, you know, using social distancing. We tried to make it very easy to communicate what's going on. So I would keep using these over and over and over again throughout the course of the next few weeks, months, however long it is. It's going to be very helpful in reassuring people where you're at. For people that aren't as worried, they're going to see the jewelry and respond to that. For people that are somewhere towards the more scared end of the spectrum, they're going to really like to see that your store is taking this seriously. Since we're non-essential businesses, I think it's really important that we reinforce that we're in this with them together and we're taking this seriously. And depending on where your store's at, you can focus in on the ones that are the most relevant for you.
Yeah, again, if we go back to think about that slide that was a pie chart. What you want to do is make sure you're encouraging people in each of those segments that it's okay and safe to come into your store. And if they're in the what virus category, then it doesn't really matter, but we want to make sure that we're speaking to them. Now, Bob and I had an interesting strategic talk about this a few days ago. There may be people who are very, very eager for America to reopen who may say to you, gosh, what's with all the hand sanitizer stuff? And one of the reasons we built a lot of content is there's also content that's not about the hand sanitizer. So you can inoculate yourself from that customer saying, hey, it's not that we're freaked. We just want to make sure that our customers who might be feel comfortable shopping with us.
Yeah, I think we need to be really aware of the fact that whatever side we push on in our social messaging, there's going to be people coming at us on the other side to a certain degree. So just by saying we're open, that's going to certainly trigger a certain percentage of people that are really scared. And they're going to say things like, how could you be open right now? How can you risk people? You know, and we can say, look, like, you know, we employ all of these people and all of these families, and we're trying to get back to business again. But look, this is what we're doing. You know, we take it seriously. We're people too. We're in the community too. We're doing A, B, C, D, all of this stuff and more than what the big box stores are doing, right? Because you and I both know, George, I mean, if Best Buy can sell video games and magazines and, you know, if they can do curbside pickup safely and if they can do these things, there's no reason why small businesses, there's no reason why we can't do the same thing. Right? I mean, if an hourly employee at Best Buy is going to be trusted to follow these procedures, there's no reason why a store owner and a professional staff can't do that as well. So I think if we're pushing more on that, we're going to be opening back upside, and we start to get some flack. I think it's not unreasonable to be able to answer people and say, look, we're taking this seriously. We're doing A, B, C, and D. Check this stuff out. We're all in this together. And I don't think it should run anybody scared off from saying that they're open.
Well, the key is we've built so much content that regardless of where you are in the country and regardless of what your local county is like, we've got content that we think will address several different levels of concern so that you can embrace your community and get folks to start coming back.
Yeah, and my store is up in Massachusetts. So, I mean, we're one of the top 5 states for this thing as well in terms of, because Boston was one of the very early ones that started getting affected with this. So we're very much on the sensitive end. So I'm dealing, and living in that environment. I've been in it for the last month and a half of people being very, very nervous. So I totally get that side of the argument 100%.
So let's move on to step 2. Unfortunately, in America, about 78% of adults are hand to mouth. It's just a fact. This problem is now going to be exacerbated, but when times were good, 78% of American adults live paycheck to paycheck. So for the vast majority of these people, their only store of value is their jewelry. And while yes, some of them have gotten stimulus checks, the unfortunate reality is that a lot of them are now going to need to start selling their gold. Now, at the outset, let me say, I'm not advocating that you make a profit based on other people's misfortune, but they are going to sell their gold with or without you. And the reality is, if you address the fact that if they need to sell gold, they can come to you, I think you do them a service by ensuring that they get real value for what they're selling when they come to you, because it's very likely that if they go to a pawn shop or they go to some other kind of less reputable company, they're going to get taken. At least I know if they come to you, they're going to get an honest value. Now, as a result, we've built, again, a tremendous amount of content. And let's just go back into the Google Drive for gold. For starters, I'll just go into the poster segment because it auto-populates with all the pictures. And again, you have all of these links in the email that our rep sent you. So you can see that we've built, I think, 16 or 17 different looks to PDFs that will allow you to tell the story, the fact that you buy gold. Now, we've also built all of these as postcards so they can be printed very, very quickly by Mail America, and you can get this out to different parts of the customer base. One of the things that we saw last time when gold buying surged in 09 and 010 is for your more affluent customers, for whom perhaps some may still want to sell their gold. If you put this in the context of repurposing, it's not just about turning your old jewelry into cash. It may be about turning your old jewelry into something that you like better. And so you can safely and tastefully broadcast to your existing base in those terms. But I think that Bob would agree, we will be pounding away at We Buy Gold in the social media chain to be able to speak to those customers. Comments, Bob?
Yeah, for sure. It's the largest gold mine in the world is in the United States households all across the country. It's definitely there. As we know, it's starting to hit the news again, like it did in 08. You're seeing a lot of these CNBC articles saying $3,000 gold. I think that really starts to pique people's interest. And, when people there's always going to be a certain segment of the population that's hurting and is going to be needing the cash. You're always going to get the person that comes in and sells the gold and says they need to pay the light bill. Whether they do or they don't, they're going to say that. But you also get a lot of people that are doing it because they want to buy a new purse. And that's just the fact of the matter, right? And there's certain people that have gotten accustomed to amount of disposable income, right? And they want to spend it for however they want to spend it. So it's not always, people that are down on their luck by any means. And now, the nice thing is that those higher end consumers are the ones that start to see the estate jewelry business as well, because they tend to have extra jewelry.
There's another discovery that we made back in 2009 and 2010. If you purposely book TV time between midnight and 6 in the morning, it is possible that you will be catching a higher percentage of people who actually need to sell their gold. And also you can be pretty aggressive in advertising to those folks. And finally, cable TV ads, if you're running from 12 until 5 in the morning, are ridiculously cheap. So we've built a series of TV ads. We built a 30 for that purpose, and then a set of 15-second bookends that speak to the fact that you might want to be able to repurpose your gold in our store. So I strongly encourage you, unlike, say, the end of 2010, where every gas station had a scale, right now there are very few people in gold buying business, and I can assure you that when things start to open up, you're going to see people who want to sell their gold. And I would strongly encourage you to direct that traffic to your store. So let's go back to the presentation.
Yeah, and you're also finding too, George, I know that in these types of situations where you've got where gold is up and people are selling and the economy is depressed, if you're in a decent cash position, you can get some fantastic buys, especially on diamonds, because the number of buyers is suppressed. There's just less people out there with the cash to lay out to purchase these things. That's a big factor too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So step 3, it happens that we are closing in on Mother's Day. And there is no reason not to capitalize on what Mother's Day potentially offers. So we have specifically built the flip book. I'll go to the Mother's Day. We had to change our normal 8-page Mother's Day flyer because there were about 12 SKUs that were trapped in India. So I actually pulled those out. So every single piece that's in this flip book is currently in stock. So Nitesh is building a Shopify website where the consumer is going to be able to go to your flip book, click on a piece, and actually place an order for it. We can either send that order to you, or we can process the financial side. We can process the credit card for you and send you the jewelry. You can then either ship it if your state is not open, or you can have them come in to pick it up if you have that level of flexibility. But all of this is in stock, every single piece, and it's all in stock in fairly significant quantities. So you can safely run this. You can distribute it as an e-blast. You can post it in social media. This is available. And all I can say is, I mean, the cost is zero, and the cost of e-blasting is zero. And if you do choose to boost posts, maybe you'll spend a couple $100. But if you're in a position to either be able to be open or to be able to get the jewelry to your customers, Anuj is committed. He's going into the office on both May the 1st as well as May the 6th to ship any orders. So if you want to run this program, it's available to you. We'll put your logo on it and everything else and give it to you. It's totally no charge. We just want to give you another opportunity to promote if you choose to do so. In addition to that, if we go back into the RLA assets, let's see. So in 2020 Mother's Day marketing, we have built a ton of social media. And again, all of this is available for you to use to post specific categories. Again, check this against the flip book and you'll see that this is all product that's all in stock. So you can safely advertise it and know that you can get it. And again, if Manhattan doesn't open up, we still will be able to ship on May 1st and May 6th for this purpose. And the Shopify website will be up and running on Tuesday. I'm actually doing a follow-up webinar to talk about the marketing initiative, but also on Tuesday, we'll be able to confirm and send you the links for the Shopify website for this purpose. So Mother's Day is one opportunity. But there's also a very important element, I think. In some way, you really need to reach out and speak to your customers now in a way that perhaps you wouldn't normally at this time of year. And it just happens that in February, we made the decision to build a book called Milestones. And Milestones is a 32-page digest that is an abridged version of the items that are in our new 100-page classics book. It's all part of a massive in-stock program. I took this picture so that I could show you what the size of the book is. And so taking product from the classics book and identifying specific milestones, the emotions they evoke in the context of jewelry. You know, one thing to remember, and I spoke about this briefly in the context of 9/11 and how emotion impacted buying behavior. Remember, jewelry, unfortunately, is the one category that we can all live without, but it is the only product that communicates emotional content. So if you're going to be successful, part of that success will be driven by the extent to which you can harness this. Now, if we go back to online, here is an actual flip book of milestones. And I wanted to briefly review this with you. What I did was to actually take different product categories and identify the kinds of purchasing opportunities that those categories could potentially take care of. And then I just wrote one page of copy that speaks to this emotional issue, and I'll read it very briefly, because I think if you can get this in your customers' hands, this will evoke a sense that maybe this would be a time to buy a piece of jewelry. Milestones, those indelible signposts that mark key moments in life's journey. How will she remember them? As dim partitions closing each of life's chapters in forgettable patterns of sameness, a soulless dance upon worn cobblestones? Or will she see her milestones as glimmering, shimmering spheres that mark key episodes in a memorable life, a life well lived? Can you catch a memory and put it in a bottle to be gazed upon with smiles and laughter? Yes, you can, and contained within these pages are the key ingredients that will mark her milestones, treasures that form the picture frames for paintings of the days that she will never forget. Now, the rest of the book is a combination of products and lifestyle shots. Again, celebrating motherhood. Daddy's little girl, gifts that you might give your daughter. Sweet 16, she's now gotten older. Maybe the kind of gift morphs and becomes more sophisticated, maybe more expensive. Will you marry me? I do. Celebrating the actual wedding itself and the jewelry that you might wear. I did. Now starting to get into a phase of celebrating anniversaries. It's your birthday. I would do it again. Now I'm speaking to the major anniversaries, 20, 25, 30, that perhaps are more significant, that have more significant meaning, and has a consumer that maybe has more discretionary income. And then finally, Love's Crossing. So anyway, our intent here is to provide you with an incredible tool. And in in-depth discussions with Anuj and with Prem, let me just bring this back. We've made the decision to subsidize it in a significant way. We will underwrite the cost of this book. So this 32-page book is 50 cents printed and mailed for the first 2,500. We really think it's terribly important that you get back in front of your customer. And now is a great time to do it, not only to remind them, honestly, that you're there. Oh, and by the way, everything's in stock. We're building the Shopify website that will launch on Tuesday so that people can order it that way. You can order it that way.
George, we have a question about Shopify too when you have a second to get into it.
Absolutely, Bob.
You want to do that now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. So there's been some interest on the Shopify and how this all works in conjunction with GEMS One. Like, we're aware of Shopify, but is GEMS One doing it? The customers are purchasing from GEMS One. Who's shipping the product? Who's getting billed? How's the profit work? That type of thing.
There are multiple ways to do this, and what we've tried to do is make it as flexible as possible. If you've got a really sophisticated website portal, you can put this on your portal and then direct purchases directly through your website. No issues there. If you don't have a sophisticated portal, if you're not e-commerce ready, then we can set it up so that when the consumer buys it, we'll actually take the credit card. We will credit your account with the retail portion of the sale, and we'll ship you the piece so you don't have to do that. But there are no rules. We will set this up in whatever way serves your needs. I hope that answers that question, Bob.
Yeah, but there is an option where we don't have to, as a store, we don't have to worry about our website. GEMS One is going to handle the selling and also the fulfillment and all of that, or?
Well, we'll send it to the store. We don't want to, since we don't know what the participation rate will be or what the order amounts will be. We don't want to promise to do something that would potentially overwhelm us. If we're suddenly getting hundreds of orders to hundreds of consumers, we'll be in trouble. We know that we can fulfill the orders to your stores. So we'll set it up so we can at least facilitate the e-commerce portion of it if you're not set up to do that. If you're set up to do that, then fantastic.
Yeah, and we're in a situation where we know the product is in stock, so we know we can get it to the store, and we're not going to get into a situation where we have angry customers calling saying, where's my stuff, or they shipped me the wrong thing, or we're going to avoid all of that.
Exactly. I mean, and also I will say, I don't expect an avalanche, but I do expect both business activity as well as enhancement of your brand when this book gets into the hands of somebody who's important to you. So everything in the book is at a 2.5 markup. Additional books are 75 cents a piece. We're still underwriting about 1/3 of the cost of doing it. We just, in looking at the numbers, if 150 of you or 200 of you want to send out 10,000 books, we had to contain our total cost. But again, for 2,500 bucks at 50 cents a piece, $1,250, getting this book into the hands of your most important customers. We thought that was a really important, beneficial thing to offer. Now, and you saw the flip book, so the flip book would also be available. So if you choose to have the books printed and send them to your customers, you can also do e-blasts of the flip book. You can post it on your website. There's tons of social media that's been built for this. And it's all available to you as a way of getting your store reopened with your best customers. What better way to remind your key customers that you're there and you're thinking about them?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, George, too, on the memories book, I like the fact that we've taken all of the thinking out of the hands of the customer in a lot of ways, as opposed to saying, here's some beautiful jewelry, now you decide when you'd like to give it as a gift. We're really flipping the script around and saying, oh, birthday coming up, here, do this, right? And we know that the less friction we can create, anytime we can take a step of thinking off the hands of the customer and really tell them what to do, we're more likely to get the result we want. So I really like the way that that's flipped around.
It's a big, beautiful book. I mean, it's, in fact, I'll also tell you, it is a precursor to a shift we're making in some of our photography for our flyers, so that instead of shooting the product, silhouetting it, photoshopping, retouching, and then laying it in, we're actually taking live shots so that, I mean, as an example, this jewelry looks like it's on the page when you're holding the book in your hands. It's really cool.
Yeah, not photoshopped on or that kind of thing, yeah.
The reps have all the information on this. If you've got questions, you can reach out to me directly or out to them, but we are ready to rock with this. And again, I'd like to do an imprinting next week so that these books are ready. Mail America will hold the books. So if you're not open yet, we can hold it until such time when your state opens, bang, we mail the book and it's in your customer's hands. Let me also mention radio briefly. Radio's going to be dirt cheap. The radio stations are doing tons of public service announcements right now because they can't sell ads. If you're in a market where you can run radio, I've written multiple scripts. They're on the Google Drive. One that's kind of cute about putting your stimulus check on steroids, one about engagement rings, one about gold buying. I've written 30s. I'll also be writing 60s, and I'll post those on the Google Drive. And they're in the RLA assets portion where all of the items about We're Back are posted. So let me now move to the predatory marketing test. As I mentioned earlier, oh, you know what, Bob, let me stop for a second. Have we got anything happening on the questions front?
No, we're okay right now. I think everybody's excited about this. I want to hear about it some more too.
I am extremely excited about this. You know, we are always searching for the Holy Grail. And in marketing, if you're in the car business, if you had a way of identifying consumers who are in the 35th month of a 36-month lease, you would probably be willing to spend a lot of money to talk to them. The problem is that you can't segment them out. Predatory marketing is a way of segmenting the consumers in your market and literally identifying only those who are interested in buying an engagement ring. Now, we're setting this up with some of our highest volume customers, not because they get special treatment, honestly. It's because I can get data so much more quickly from a $30 million store or a $20 million store because they're getting so many at bats. But honestly, since I had this chance to talk to you guys today, it occurred to me that some of you might find this interesting. And so, here's basically what it amounts to. So here is a screenshot from my wife's store. And I think we can definitely say, yes, there are people on her website. There are people on your website. They're there all the time. They're doing research. We know from market data, from focus group data, that over 80% of people are going to buy an engagement ring, do research online. But there's a problem. The problem is, there are far more people looking at your competitors' websites. It's just a fact. As I do market share analysis in your stores when I'm traveling particularly during the summer and building marketing strategies, I very seldom see a store that's got more than a 20% market share. So the reality is, yes, there are people on your website, but there are a heck of a lot more people who are on your competitors' websites. So if there was a way for us to pick those people up, the result would be we could get them all. And to me, that's the holy grail. How about if we had an ability to specifically target all the people in your market who are thinking about buying an engagement ring, and we could focus your advertising dollars specifically on them. So let's go to a few websites and think about what that consumer experience is like. I mean, as an example, there's a pretty good chance that there are consumers in your market going to Blue Nile. And, they're going to Brilliant Earth. Unfortunately, they're going to Rare Carat, where they're seeing the lowest possible diamond prices from a bunch of different diamond retailers who are online. But they're also going to brick and mortar retailers. They're going to Diamonds Direct. They're going to K.com. They're going to Jared.com. And in each of these cases, they may actually be going into a subdomain, like they may be looking on Jared at engagement rings. So notice what happened. The URL originally was Jared.com. Now it's changed to Jared.com/engagement rings. What predatory marketing allows us to do is to identify the consumers who are going to these websites. Now, many of you are familiar with reflective marketing, and a lot of you probably are already using it. That's when somebody who comes to your website allows you to put a pixel on their computer so that when they then subsequently look at other websites where advertising is displayed, you get to serve them an ad. This is totally different. This isn't about somebody who came to your website who you could identify. This is about somebody who went to Jared, who went to Blue Nile, who went to Brilliant Earth. We can now buy both domain as well as subdomain. So that means not just Jared.com, but if we want to look at those specific consumers who then looked at engagement rings, we can target them and serve them with advertisements. Now, Bob, you and I haven't spoken about this before. So do you have questions specifically about this?
Yeah, well, I think the main question is going to be, I would think how a lot of people would understand how this is different than regular remarketing or retargeting ads where people are hitting our property. But I would say, how are we able to kind of track down the fact that people are going to totally different websites and then get them into our website? How's that all work?
Okay, so the way that works is we are working through RLA Creative with a company called Achieve 360. They started doing this 2 years ago. They developed proprietary technology that allows us to track where this consumer is online, and it's shocking. In fact, I would say if the CIA or the NSA wanted to sell engagement rings, they would be working on developing some kind of technology like this. And you can imagine why I originally thought, well, it's got to be illegal. I mean, it's a violation of privacy laws in some way. And fortunately, I went to the powers at Dyaroff and was actually able to identify a couple of people, one in London and one in India, who are extremely well versed in these potential issues. and I was able to get a sign off. It's possible that you can't do this in the EU. It may actually be against the law. But in the United States and in Canada, no problem.
So
So
are they using search history? Or are they using interests? Now, are these people that are following jewelry pages or Google searching for Google searching for jewelry or?
no, it's not Google searches. They're actually working with the browsers. They're actually paying the browsers for history. And what's incredible is when somebody goes on Jared, let's say you draw a geofence that's 15 miles around your store in Swansea, Massachusetts. So any consumer who lives there, who then goes on either with an IP address that shows up within that geofence or with a cell phone, I've forgotten the technical term, but our cell phones have the equivalent of an IP address as well. If anybody goes to Blue Nile and you've targeted Blue Nile, then within 60 minutes, they will start receiving ads from you when they go to other websites. We also can get more granular, so we can go to jared.com/engagement rings, k.com/engagement rings. Within Blue Nile, we can look specifically at people who are looking at 2-carat diamonds if we want. Now, I can say in the case of my wife's store, we have 5 independent competitors plus 1 chain store. I am going to be all over those 6 websites, but I'm also going to do all of the internet websites. And what's great is it doesn't cost more to attack more websites. The only charges associated with this are 3.5 cents every time we serve an ad. So, anyway, I'm sorry. So more questions from you?
No, let's see. So Jonathan wants to know, would you drop your Google search campaigns and put dollars into this instead? Is this the kind of thing that, I mean, if it is a holy grail, is this something that's going to replace other things? Is this more of a supplement? How do you see this going in the mix?
This is so much more powerful than the Google search. I want to know specifically when somebody's on Blue Nile or on Brilliant Earth or on K.com or on Jared.com, I don't want to rely on what they were looking for. They're going and they're doing their research. What I would say to Jonathan, though, is I wouldn't bet the farm on it yet. What I want to do is a test. Here's what they've been able to show me. They've shown, in fact, I'll tell you a couple of quick anecdotes. Napa Auto Parts is a franchise with 1,000 stores in the United States, actually over 1,000 stores. They are getting hammered by a company called Rock Auto. Rock Auto does TV ads, driving people to their website. They're a website-only company. So in a very real sense, that's parallel to our problem. We're brick and mortar retailers selling diamonds, competing against Blue Nile and Brilliant Earth and those kinds of companies. So in the case of the Rock Auto, the Napa Auto Parts dealers targeted consumers going to Rock Auto. And they, within 60 days, started diminishing their other forms of advertising because they were finding that the consumers they wanted to reach were going to Rock Auto in a significant way. And those auto parts dealers have now seen significant increases. They're all franchises, so they all make decisions independently. Over 1,000 of them are now using predatory marketing. Wow. The second is we have a customer in Oklahoma who started testing this last November. And they discovered that there was an enormous uptick in both their web traffic as well as their click-through rates. Unfortunately, I'm so tired of seeing click-through rates and web traffic. I want to see sales. So the test that I want to do is something where a store offers a specific promotion, but only through predatory marketing. I want to track what happens with that over the course of 60 days. So with the stores that we're setting up, I guess what I'm saying is this: we've got a new way of casting when we're going fishing, and we've got a different part of the lake we want to go fishing in. To test the casting technique in this part of the lake, I don't want to use frozen shrimp. I want to use live shrimp. So I want really, really good bait. So I'm thinking 5 years interest-free. We know that produces response. I'm thinking half off on the engagement ring semi-amount. I want to do something aggressive that you're not doing during the same period. And I want to launch this when stores open up, because again, I think we're going to see a big bounce in bridal sales anyway. And I am so excited that we can, what we're really doing is this: we're taking a filter. Imagine you're in a market with 100,000 people. We're identifying the 2,000 people who are going to get engaged and buy 1,000 engagement rings. And if you assume that the normal purchase journey for the engagement consumer is between 30 and 90 days, within 90 days, we will literally start picking up consumers as they begin their search. So that within 90 days, every person we see who's searching will be making their first search online. To me, it makes great intuitive sense. And the stores that I want to do the test with are going to spend $2,000 a month for a couple of months. I think we could even get in a smaller market, we'd get a response that would give us good data at $1,000 a month for 2 months. I just want to get data so we understand, can we actually move the sales needle?
Yeah.
So are there other questions, Bob? What's showing up in chat?
Yeah, a question, a comment. We got a bunch of stuff happening here that some people are excited. So is this only for large sites like a major, or can we use this against local competitors as well? Can I pick my local folks even regardless of web traffic?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, see, the reason that we're calling it predatory, I can tell you there are jewelers who I've spoken with about this who actually don't like the name predatory because frankly, they're very ethical people and they don't want to be predators. The reason we're using that name is because the more your competitors spend on advertising, the more they will drive customers to you. Okay, this is truly predatory. This is like the hyenas getting the lion to go out and make a bunch of wildebeest kills and then leave so that they can go in and actually have dinner over and over and over again. It's a fantastic opportunity. Let's say, for example, yesterday I was talking with someone who Diamonds Direct just moved into their market and it has killed them. It has absolutely murdered their traffic for engagement rings. But what they have found is since Diamonds Direct doesn't sell lab, their lab sales are actually through the roof. So what I want to do is set up a scenario there where we hit people who are going to the Diamonds Direct website with lab offers, because the lab is going to be 30 to 40% less, even though Diamonds Direct sells diamonds very, very cheaply. Lab's going to be a lot less. Now, if you're in a small market like we are here in Jodystown, in Jodystown, we've got some small stores, but they do have website traffic. And I don't want to let anybody escape the net if I don't need to. And again, it doesn't cost extra to target more stores because it's all done on an automated process. The only cost here is the cost of serving the ads, because the guys at 360 have to bid on that space that's on those other ads. You go to CNN or Fox News or Drudge or whatever website you go to read news, you're going to see ads. But now instead of seeing retargeted ads from your competitor, that consumer is going to see your ads telling them, why don't they give your store a shot?
And what's the pricing like on these ads again?
It's 3.5 cents per serve. So $1,000 gets you about 27,000 ads. Now, one thing that's handy is if we can't hit as many ads as your spend budget, then you're only going to, like if you're in a really, in fact, Robert, the CEO of Qi 360 was telling me in some of the Napa Auto Parts stores, they're in such small markets that they've got a budget of $1,000 a month, but they're only spending about 200. So they're only paying for 200 because there aren't enough consumers. But I would say in most of your markets, the folks who I saw sign up for this webinar, I'm sure that we could serve, 55,000 ads. That's $2,000 worth of advertising in a month. I'm pretty sure that we can do that. Yeah. And I would just love, again, what I want though is I'm so tired of people talking about customer engagement and website traffic. Show me the money. I want to prove that if you spend $2,000, you sell 8 engagement rings. And I want to prove that we can get people who didn't even know your store existed because they were going to these other sites and we nailed them this way.
Yeah. Well, from a marketing standpoint, when we think about, the traditional marketing funnel, you mentioned those overnight cable TV ads. One of the reasons those are so cheap is because we don't know who is watching these things, right? We're just throwing a cast out into the lake and saying, there might be some people in this area, right? And then as we funnel down to the middle of the area, we're talking about things like Google search and Facebook, where Google and Facebook are saying, all right, we know this person generally likes these things. So if this person generally has an interest in jewelry, maybe they're interested in jewelry right now. This is really about as bottom of the funnel as you can get, because this is a person that is physically going to one of these websites. And now, granted, we all have time in quarantine, but in general, most people are not hanging out on the Blue Nile website, and especially some of these more niche, engagement-centric websites, unless they're looking. So to a certain extent, I don't care what it costs, because the quality of the traffic is so bottom funnel. We know these people are so dialed in and interested in their purchasing window in all likelihood that we can spend a lot more on them.
Well, that's exactly, again, it goes back to the holy grail of marketing. Finding the consumer who's got a 36-month lease in their 35th month of their car lease. What excites me about this is the fact that we can just get rid of all the people who are not currently thinking about buying an engagement ring, but also get the people who have never found your store. And the reality is, for most of you, it's very unusual that I see a store with more than a 20% market share. And yet I think that if more people found you, you would sell more engagement rings. So as I said, the one critical element is I want you to feature an offer that's really good bait, and only feature that offer through this mechanism. Let's do that for 2 months. Let's get the data. As I said, the data I've seen are amazing. If you can quintuple, you have a 5-time increase in web traffic for the store in Oklahoma City, and you have a 6-time increase in click-through rates on their advertising, because they were already doing a lot of reflective advertising. They were already pretty sophisticated in digital. But what's happened is they've taken more and more of their normal budget. In fact, what would be great is if we could not only dramatically increase your bridal sales, but also decrease your advertising expenditures this way. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is the potential that I see here. I just want 2 months of data.
Yeah.
Are there other questions, by the way? What else is happening in general?
In terms of geography of serving the ads, we're telling people that are going to K. Are we then serving ads to people in a radius? Like let's put it this way. How are we differentiating a person that is in a totally different state that goes to K?
No.
And how do we not serve an ad to somebody that's in a totally different state? How do we make sure that we're talking to the same audiences and they're all local?
Achieve 360 can build the geofence one of 2 ways. Either a specific radius around a point, in which case that would be your store, or specific zip codes. One of the higher volume stores that I'm doing this test with is in northwestern Philly. And they're actually in a location where most of their engagement ring sales come from an area starting about 6 miles away. So instead of going around their store, we're actually going to those zip codes that are most productive for them. And it's a $12 million store. And they actually have an interest in doing some B2C that's not driven by people coming into the store, but actually selling online. And so they're going to use this test as a way of starting to understand how that process works. But what's great is they do a lot of advertising. They've been around for a while. And so they've got brand equity. So the fact that they've got brand equity plus a strong offer is going to give us info. In their case, they're actually spending considerably more than the $2,000 a month. And we're going to be looking at their data every day.
Yeah.
To see. And we're also going to be doing A/B comparisons. Some consumers are going to get one offer and some consumers are going to get another, because we want to start to understand which of the offers are most successful. But I think for the vast majority of the people on this test, I want to do simple stuff. I want really good bait so we know that it works. And then over the course of time, we can start to adjust the bait and maybe start to figure out how do we both sell more stuff but also increase margins.
And there's been a couple questions regarding the geography again on this, so I just want to try to focus in a little bit on it. We can either make this a 5-mile radius, or we could make this a 500-mile radius, right? I mean, this is the kind of thing that could be scaled nationally if you wanted to, or as local as your town.
You could absolutely scale it. There are weird scenarios. Imagine, for example, if Quality Gold chose to target Stuller. I mean, Q Gold and Stuller live in a binary universe. It's either Quality Gold or it's Stuller if you're ordering that kind of stuff. And so, imagine a town. We've got a very big customer in Tampa, Florida, and 200 yards from their store is their main competitor. It's another, they're in a 8,000 square foot store, and their main competitor is in an 8,000 square foot store, and it's one hell of a death struggle. And I've mystery shopped the other store multiple times, and they're very sophisticated. Imagine when I went to the owners of our customer and said, we can now target the other guy. So yeah, this is a really cool thing. Oh, I should tell you one other thing that was important to me. I was able to get an exclusive for us with this. So we will be able to, if you've got 20 stores or less, we'll be able to control who does it. So the key is, in a town with 5 jewelers, if you're our customer in that town, the other 4 will not have access to this. So they will not be able to use this on you.
Nice. Yeah,
What else?
the last thing I think I'll say on audiences too is I understand the desire to try to get as tight a radius as you can around your area. But I think what we have to kind of balance out is making sure that we get enough people into the funnel to see results. So we don't want an audience, because there's only so many people, right? We know 1% of the population usually is looking at engagement rings. So there's always going to be a relatively small percentage of the population that's looking at that stuff. I don't think we want to get into a situation where we're serving this to 50, 100, 200 people a month. We need to make sure that we've got enough of a radius that we're putting these ads in front of enough people that we can get some transactions in, get some traffic in.
So here's the way I think you can look at it, Bob. If we assume a 90-day purchase journey, and we assume total shoppers at 1% of population. Let me just do the math in my head. You got 100,000 people in the market that you're tracking. You've got potentially 2,000 people, because it's both him and her, who may be looking at any one time. So that's each month is 8.5%. So that's 170 actively looking over a 3-month cycle. So now you've got over 500 people actively looking. And I know that you typically want about 30 serves in order to make an impression. That's the thing that the guys at El Toro are looking for. So I do think if we target an area that's got 50,000 consumers, we are likely to get enough activity that we'll see some purchases. In fact, honestly, we should see a lot of purchases if the bait is right.
Yeah, and I would think you could also kind of figure out a way to balance between engagement, because as you mentioned, we can do subdomain as well. Because there was a question about the difference between jewelry and engagement. Jewelry and engagement rings and that kind of thing. We can kind of break that out as long as there's enough volume. As long as it's a big enough area. If you're in a smaller area, you're not going to be able to have the luxury, I don't think, of separating out the jewelry from the engagement. You may not have enough traffic. There's a lot of questions regarding this stuff, but I think it's going to come down to each individual situation and just how many people are searching for this area.
Great. Once we start to acquire data, we can fine tune this thing. The reality is that only one retailer has done it in jewelry. And their market was large enough and they had enough data that it proved to me that something really powerful is happening. I accept intellectually and conceptually the fact that this makes awesome sense. So like I said, if you want to participate, talk with your rep. I'm going to be doing a follow-up webinar on Tuesday where we can go into greater detail with this. I'm actually going to bring in Robert Westall, who is the CEO of Achieve 360. Because I have built a fairly decent fundamental knowledge about this, but he's actually the one who's constructed the program with his company. So he'll be able to answer more specific technical questions. So other questions, other stuff that we should be looking at, Bob?
I'm just looking through it. There's definitely a lot of really, a lot of the questions are pretty specific, and a lot of them would be answered based on your own individual situation. We've touched on a lot of the general points, so I'll keep monitoring, but I think that if we go on, we're just going to wind up kind of circling around the same wagon.
Okay, well, the reason I mentioned that is I just looked at my my phone, and it's 11:01.
Yep.
So let's end this now. I appreciate all of you coming. I'm glad that it looks like it was interesting and hopefully entertaining and gave you some food for thought. All I can tell you is we're working really hard to build things that you can use so that you can continue to be really good GEMS One customers. So stay safe, stay well. Give your rep a call if you want to talk about some of this stuff. We are ready to roll, and you guys get ready to rumble. And thank you very much for coming. Have a great day. Oh, and thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. See you guys.